Do subscribe our Techno Guru class channel and please don't forget to press that bell icon to receive further updates.
Hey, hello guys, this is Ritesh here. Welcome to our Techno Guru class and to the Python for Beginners series. In this tutorial, I'll tell you about classes and objects. Okay, so here I have an image in front of you guys about class. Let me tell you what class is. Basically, you know that Python is object-oriented programming language, right? So if you did other languages like C and Java, then you quite know about this thing like what is object oriented. So class and object are one feature that you will find inside this object oriented programming. Okay, so as our Python is object oriented, it's OOP based, then that this class concept also comes in that. Okay, then second point you can see over here, class provides a means of bundling data and functionality together. Okay, basically I'll tell you what is class is you can say object which holds, okay, class is having two things in it. One is data you can call it as variables, what I call as global variables, or you can say data members. And functionality means basically functions, use of functions. You know what is function. So these two things are bundled. I mean it is covered inside class, right, to make this data secure, right? So next, creating a new class creates a new type of object. Okay, there are some predefined classes as well. If you know about Java, there were some classes like integer, double. I'm just giving example, guys. So there were some classes, but still, if you want some classes to be defined by your end, it should be functioning as per your requirement. Then you can create a new class, which means it you are creating a new data type. Okay, instances of that type. Okay, last is each class instance can have attribute attached to it for maintaining its state. Attributes is nothing but functions, right? So to change or to do some changes in the state of that class, like suppose a class is having some data, I want to change the state of that data, or I want to make changes in the data itself. So at that time this attributes help me to do the same. Okay, so this is something about class. So what is class is a collection of data members and member function, this one. Okay, so this much. And second key point that you should understand is class helps me to create a user defined data type, okay, which will act as per our requirement that way. Okay, let's go ahead and see some practicals for that. Okay, so here in this program, I will implement a class concept here. I'll try to create a class. I'll provide a class name as student. Okay, and this class is a keyword which helps me to define a class over here, and then I'll create one function over here. Def, let's say I'll write something called stud data. Here I'll define all my data of student. Okay, let's take one variable over here locally, which will help me to take values while calling, right? So but here one important thing, here you have to mention self. Okay, self is what I'll explain you in my at the end of this video, or somewhat for that, but you need to watch this video entirely till end. Okay, then you'll understand what is self. Then I'll take two more variables, let's say s name, that's the student name, and let's say age. So these are the three parameters we are passing, right? uh, I'll here I'll say change the name of this. Let's say set data. Okay, so set data. I'll set data for student, right? I'll write over here self dot s name. Now what is this self dot s name? Okay, the self. I'll just define this. What is self? Self is basically helps me to identify the current object, right? What is that current object? When I'll create that object, that I'll tell you. Self dot sname. Sname is what here? Sname is a variable which I am trying to create here. I'll initialize this sname with the local sname. That is what I did passed over here. Even you can take this name separate, guys, that we can implement. I'll just show you this one first. Sname and self dot let's say age. I'll initialize age over here with the local age, right? I'll try to display this display data, and here I'm not passing anything, but I told you important thing, this self should be there in your parameter list. Okay, so self I'll write over here. Let's say I'll display this data, print student name. I'll try to display this name here as name, print. I'll display of student age. I'll display this. Okay, not S name. It should recognize, I mean, it should be particular to that object. So while writing name, it should be self dot s name. I'll explain you what is why I'm writing self dot s name. Okay, self dot age. Okay, this way you have to define. Now here I'll implement this class concept. I'll try to use this class. Whenever I want to use this functions, or let's say variables, I need to create object of any class, right? So let's say I'll create one object for this student class. So first object will be stud1. So this is the name of that object. You can take any name over here, okay, whatever you want. Student1. Now here the student1 is of what type, okay, that you need to define over here. So equal to, you should mention over your student and brackets. So this way it works. This way you create object for any class. So this is my object name, and of what type you want, that is student. Okay, so this way. Now if I want to access this set data, so this should be accessible with the help of my object. So stud1 dot, or you can say a period symbol, and set data. Okay, now I need to pass some parameters in this. Self is something I'll explain you, but before that, yeah, just for an example, you don't need to pass for that anything from here. For self, it is automatically passed. Now what is passed, I'll tell you. Let me just pass s name. I'll pass techno guru over here, and for age, let's say I'll write 25. Okay, now what about self? Now here by defaultly, here visually you can see that two parameters has been passed, but internally what happens here, it is passing three parameter. What is that first parameter? You next two parameters, but what about that first parameter? What that first parameter is? That first parameter is by default the name of your object. So what self is going to hold is stud1, stud1, right? And what s name will hold is technoguru, and what age will hold is 25, right? Now when you say s name, that time s name is with self, right? When you pass, when I say like student1 is passed to self, that means that s dot name is basically nothing but stud1, right? So that way. Now assume if I am creating one more object, let's say stud2, and I'll create object, you know how to create same. Now I create this way. So same, this statement I will create over here, but here name will be 2, right? Here instead of technoguru, I'll take something, let's say Hitesh, and here I'll pass age, let's say 23. Now what happens is, in this scenario, what happens is here self will take stud2, s name will take Hitesh, and age will take 23. That way the concept is. Okay, let's call this display function to display the data. Okay, stud1 dot display data. I'll just use this to display those data. Stud2 dot display data. Okay, now I just save this and we'll run our module. Let's see. Cool, it's implementing. Yeah, here you can see what happened. You can see just visually over here what is happening here. When you pass set data, when you called through stud1, I told you self will take stud1, right? So stud1 dot s name will hold the value of local s name. Stud1 dot age will hold the value of local age. Oh, sorry, stud1 dot age will hold the local age value. So that way, the same will happen for the stud2 also here. You can see these things. So in this tutorial, this much only. Do like this video if you understood the concepts well. If you have any doubt, guys, you can comment me down. Do watch my next tutorial as well. Complete this series. Thank you so much.